Bad news. Yes, I said it. Bad news. Top Ranks Bob Arum says that Crawford versus Spence Part 2 will do nothing like the numbers of the first fight. That's what I want to explore in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Bob Arum, let's jump right into it. Recent interview, he says, Terence Crawford is a great talent. He always said that though, and he proved it. The great question is, can you match his economic demands with his actual marketability? So Bob Arum still is skeptical that Terence Crawford is a money-making machine. He goes on to say, and when we're not able to do that, we lost a lot of money promoting Crawford's fights. I wish him well, but my company isn't prepared to take those risks. So he's saying good riddance. Terence Crawford was extraordinarily good fighting Errol Spence. It did very well economically, but again, if you ran it back and you have Terence fighting Spence again, I really don't believe that it would do anything like the numbers from the first fight or like the numbers that the first fight did. What people didn't realize was you look at Spence and you look at his whole career, the one thing that was glaring was all of his great victories, all of his fights, he had fought 2-0 southpaws. So that should have indicated to everybody that Spence didn't like fighting southpaws. Crawford and Bomac, they knew that. What did they do? They just fought him southpaw. So very interesting stuff from Bob Arum. Again, he's questioning the marketability of Terence Crawford, and he's saying that Errol Spence, you know, he's fighting southpaws. Leonard Bundu was a switch hitter. Chris Van Herdeen, a southpaw. But he's saying, like, these aren't elite world-class southpaws. The only thing I definitely disagree, like, the way Bob Arum is framing it, he's making it sound as if Terence Crawford knew this and Bomac knew this, and as if Errol Spence was deliberately avoiding southpaws. But there's just less left-handers in this world. So it's not necessarily an issue of avoiding southpaws. It's just there weren't any other southpaws that he really needed to fight. And then one that does come to mind, he was scheduled to fight, and that was the great Manny Pacquiao of General Santos. I want to right? He was already supposed to fight Manny Pacquiao. So that's not his fault that his eye succumbed to pretty much a previous injury and got re-injured and he had a detached retina. I mean, he's not going to fight a guy and risk blindness to fight Manny Pacquiao. I mean, the commission and the doctors, once that was known about, they wouldn't even allow that. So that's a southpaw, a legendary Hall of Fame southpaw. He was definitely going to fight, but things didn't work out. The universe had other plans. Pacquiao went on to fight Ugas. Pacquiao. See, and here's the thing. Errol Spence said, I will fight the winner of Pacquiao Ugas. So when Errol healed up, he did just that. But unfortunately for Pacquiao, I believe he didn't win the fight with Ugas, and then he retired. So really, you have to blame Pacquiao because it still could have been Spence versus Pacquiao, but Pacquiao couldn't get through Ugas and beat him because Errol Spence, as we know, he did good numbers fighting Ugas after Ugas had a sensational victory over Manny Pacquiao. So that's not Errol Spence's fault. Pacquiao didn't make it to the end of the tournament. You know what I mean? So I disagree with Bob Arum there. Now, you could make the argument that Errol wasn't prepared for such a class southpaw because Chris Van Herdeen's not going to prepare you for Terence Crawford. And when I made my fight prediction, I did pick Errol versus Terence Crawford, and I was wrong. However, Terence Crawford, I don't recall the last fight where he just came out as a southpaw and stayed a southpaw the whole duration. So that was a bit of a switch that caught me off guard, and it definitely caught Errol Spence off guard because there was no success. Like round one was, Errol's best round, I guess you could say. It was pretty competitive, but he got dropped in round two, and then it went downhill from there. So that was smart on Bomac's part, smart on Crawford's part. They didn't give Errol Spence like those openings as an orthodox fighter and then switch stances. They didn't even leave anything to chance, and they didn't allow for that error, because what I said in my breakdown before the fight is Crawford, sometimes he gets touched up and he gets hit more as a right-hander, but they completely left that out the equation, and fair play. He didn't even try to fight like a right-hander, right? Because that probably wouldn't have been to his advantage, but that was a smart game plan from Bomac and Terence Crawford, strategy-wise, to just start as a southpaw and don't mess with it. As the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Don't need to change anything that's working, and it was successful. As far as what Bob Arum is saying about Crawford's marketability, he's been saying that, so that's really nothing new under the sun. And he's talking about Crawford marketability can't sell. I mean, I do understand what he's talking about, because he's saying Crawford's economic demands, we're not, as Top Rank, we're not prepared to pay him $8-10 million for fights where Mean Machine there's no way that fight is going to be, if you have to pay Mean Machine, let's say $750K to $1 million, and then you have to pay Crawford $8 million or whatever. It's just, that's not the type of fight. It's not on pay-per-view. It's solid at best. There's no way you could justify that financially and say, hey, it's worth this salary. And it's cool, I guess, if you're in Saudi Arabia and you just have money to burn, where you can put on this heavyweight Day of Reckoning card and you're oil tycoons, so you're not really worried about losing the money because you have so much more of it. You know what I mean? So most American promoters in boxing, most businesses in general, they're not going to operate like that. They're not going to go off of the hope factor and like, oh, I hope this does well. They're going to go off stats and numbers. So it'll be interesting to see the push that Crawford Spence gets and how everything looks on a new platform like Amazon Prime potentially. I think that's a good start, because it's something brand new. So you might have an influx of people interested, and they can have a good promotional push for the rematch. So we'll see how that plays out. As far as what Bob Arum said about the numbers not doing good, I just told you, we'll see, because Amazon Prime, I have them, and they do a great job they do an amazing job of promotion. So they could promote this fight, especially for me. I think if the fight's at 54, it makes it a bit more appealing. Errol Spence will still be the underdog based on how the first fight looked, and people have that taste in their mouth, but it'll be the best way to market the fight. We'll see what happens. Subscribe to the channel and check out this other Errol Spence video that I just did.